Hello everyone, this is Ali Reza. Welcome to the Mentor Code Lab. In previous episode, we had done our screen util that would draw any width and height for the background automatically so that we don't have to draw things in Photoshop anymore. The concept is that you don't need to have different textures for your GUI. You just do everything on the fly. There are libraries out there like libgui doing this, and I will dedicate a video to look into the libgui and show you why I'm reinventing the wheel, because libgui is really heavy, at least in the concept. They may need it. I'm not gonna talk about that. But what I want is really an easy way, light-weighted solution to draw 80 to 90% of the GUI stuff that we will have in the game. I think the only thing that I am not covering right now would be tabbed layouts. So you will have tabs, and when you click on a tab, the interface of a layout would be changed. That's the only thing that I'm not covering here. The rest are just drawing textures, drawing progress bars, drawing widgets. All of that is possible. It would cover, I think, 98, 95% of the user interfaces that we have in games, unless you are doing something really heavy. In this video, before I go into the abstraction, I want to tell you something. This solution is not eliminating of using your painting application. Yes, you can give it a try and draw everything on the fly. When you want to draw your UI, you need to go into your painting application first and draw and design your UI there, and then come back and use this library and replace everything by code. That may look like an extra step. However, if you don't want to use paint application, then you can start by guessing and then tweaking stuff and solving everything as possible on the fly. For example, I can add player background here, and it's really easy for me. So I will say screen utils dot draw player inventory, and I will start with context. Then for the X and Y, I don't know. I really don't know. I will start with 10. I don't know the height. So let's go with 60 maybe. Okay. And I will just run the application, and it's totally wrong. So if you are starting from 100, then we go with at least 8 more maybe. Okay, then 20. And as you see, it's not that consuming to put things where they should be. Just like that, I centered it on the X, and the only thing remaining is the Y. So let's go with 90. I don't know, 130. A little bit more down, 40, too much. Okay, move 3 pixels maybe up. So 37, and I'm happy with it. Okay. Of course, it's not really centralized because I'm using dynamic values here, and I'm not sure what is the width or height. I could put a breakpoint here and take a look at them, and let's do it actually. So what is the width value? Will you show me? 427. We reduce 200 from it, so 227, okay? And if we want to, we can do some crazy math to centralize this thing. That would be it. Same goes for the Y. So the height is actually 200 here. And as you see, I'm moving 40 something. 240 minus 40 is 200. That's this border. And I need to go all the way up to draw it here. If you know the background width and height that we already know because we have constants there that we can use, we can do it crazy math and do everything dynamic. Or as you saw, we can go with the try and error, and it's not really that consuming. Maybe designing your UI would take only 5 to 10 to 15 minutes, depending on how big your UI is. For example, if I want a slot, I will say screen utils.draw texture for the context, with the X being 140, with the Y being 24, and the width and height would be slot icon textures dot slot dot empty normal. And I forgot that I need the ID first. So dot ID, then that's the X, that's the Y. Then we need the U, V, width and height, and finally the texture width and texture height. And trust me, when you had done one of these, you can copy paste it and only change the values. So again, let's run it. It should be around here somewhere. Now it's being drawn, but I think I got something wrong in the texture names. Yeah, I think I got something wrong in the texture names because the slot background, I need the slot, not the background. Yeah, it's the same thing. What are the chances that I'm drawing on one of the slots exactly? So 100, let's go with 104. Oh, look at that, 44. Yeah, thank you. So that's there, okay? So if you don't derp like me, it's easy to put your slot in the GUI and then just tweak the numbers for X and Y, and then you will put it exactly where you want. For example, let's go with 34, too much, okay, 30. It's almost in the same place. So if you don't want to use a paint application, Be my guest. It's easy to draw things on the GUI this way. And if you have a Paint application, it's really easier because you just drag and drop things inside the application and figure things out, and then come back and just put the code there and it will draw for you. If you want to have all these textures as resources, they are in my repository. So you can just clone the repository, go into the JiGui and resources, and there are tons of textures here that you can utilize and use and design your UI. Lots of them came from vanilla and king around inside different mods. And if I see something really useful, I add them. For example, this is a collection of icons that I already got from some mods. And as you see, one of them is more than enough to add tons of textures inside our library. However, I need to sit back and add them one after another. For example, N, M, and T, and A, and 1, I don't think I will add them, but others are pretty much useful. Not this number, not this number. So I need to sit back and find one after another. And as you see, I have more things in each one of these folders to be added. For example, from this guy, I will take that black circle and the green circle as a widget for progress, although we can't draw things in a circular fashion, but we can go from top to bottom, left to right, or any other way. And yes, that's how I collect things. And honestly, GUI textures, I think, is okay to add inside the library because at least the textures that I'm selecting and using are not really licensed to not being used inside UI. Anyway, I will add them in free time and it will not be added right now. So if you want to, you can clone the repository and have all those elements being separated, not like a spreadsheet, but being separated one after another, and you can design your UI however you want to design it, and then come back with the code. And the nice thing about having a code is that, for example, when you have the crossed circle icon for a UI, you can draw it on top of anything that you want in your UI using the code. But for the background, you are limited on how you can draw backgrounds in Photoshop. Anyway, now that we got it out of our system and talked about that, it's time to go back and figure things out here. The reason this .x and y didn't work in my case was that I was calling the super first, and the super is actually handling this. So I have to add them and then call the super, or actually take the super and drop it to the very end. The problem with these order of operation things is that after a few days, you forget what you have to do, and you have to constantly go back and forth between different classes, looking around, and chances are that you will really forget something. And that's the whole point of having these libraries. For example, in the G inventory, I could drop this block entity because let's take a look. It's really not that big. It's only reading and writing the NBT with few lines of code and adding few different things here and there. But the good thing about having this is that if you have a GUI that only needs to handle inventory, it's not crafting anything, it's not having fluid, it's not having energy, a chest, for example, you don't need to remember what you need to do in what order you need to do that. Just extend your block entity from J inventory and it will handle the inventory for you. You just need to add the inventory size and inventory inputs and outputs or anything else you want. Same thing is happening inside UI. So the reason I have those abstract classes in UI, for example, this abstract screen handler, is exactly the same concept. I don't need to think and remember the order of operation here. I don't need to remember how should I draw the player slots, how should I add the player slots, or where should I add the player slots, or how would I get the block, how would I get the block entity, or anything else actually. For example, if I want to cache a player here, I can simply go and say protected final player entity player. I can say this dot player equals to player entity dot player. And now I have the access to the player here, and I can even add a getter for that. So I can say that let's add it right after the block entity, public player entity get player, and all I'm doing is returning this dot player. As simple as that. Now I added some functionality that normally you wouldn't have in any handler without any trouble, So let's start with our abstract handler. Let's see what it is using. It's using helded screen. I'm not gonna name it helded screen because I want to stick with my naming convention, and I will say abstract screen renderer. Now, abstract screen renderer needs to extend that handle the screen, but handle the screen needs to know this screen handler. So I will say we have a generic T that extends any screen handler. We are not bound to use our own library, and we can do that. It's not abstract right now. So it says that implement methods for draw background. That's exactly what I want to draw. And then it says construct matching super. Okay, let's have it. Now, if I go and compare things to my implementations, you see that we have a handler, we have a title and player inventory. I don't need to cache player anymore because guess what? The handler is caching it. Here, all I need to do is draw the background. However, I want to have that init first. Okay, so I will say init. And as I said, we need to call things before the super. One of the things that I always do is this title thing. So I will copy it, I will paste it here. But sometimes you don't want to see that player inventory title or the container title. So I will have two booleans on top, and that is protected, final, and we call it should draw container name. And here I will say if we should draw the container name, I forgot that it needs to be boolean. So if we should draw the container name, do this. However, there is something else, and that is if we want to be centered. So protected final boolean should container name centered. If this is going on, then I will check if should be centered. Else I want to do something else. To do that, let's take a look at this init and see where it is putting that title X. It's not doing it, but title X, where are you being used? Oh, I need to generate the sources here. Okay, compile please. I'm not going to generate the sources. I may not find it that way. So all I'm doing is just doing this. This.title X is 8. That's the default value. So I will take it from there and I will say if we are not going to center it, then do this. However, if we are not going to show it, then please make it 10,000. Okay. And I don't think anyone has a 10K monitor. So that's it. Let's make it 100,000. Who cares? Then I need to do the same thing for the inventory. For example, you see that I'll always say the Y is 10,000. So I will say if should draw player inventory name, then we want to do something else. And I will go with title X again to be consistent. And again, I will add another extra 0 here. So I need another boolean here. Protected final boolean should do that. And again, I want another protected final boolean should inventory name centered. So if we should be centered, all we want to do is get the same calculation. However, here we want to say that title X equals to background text render with, but here we want to find something else. Now, what is that inventory name being assigned to? The easiest way is to look for inventory text. No. That's it. Wonderful. Interestingly enough, raw foreground, title, player inventory title. That's what we want. Okay, so we can center the title if we want to. Okay, else, let's see where we are assigning this value. It's again 8. So else this dot equals 8. After this, inside init, we want to centralize ourselves on the width and height. For centralizing, we established the fact that the init is actually doing this part, width minus background divided by 2 and height. However, problem is that we need to set the width and height. So I will copy this. I will come back here and I will paste it. However, we don't know our width and height. There are two ways to handle it. One way is to add two methods here. The other way is to have them in the constructor. So I prefer to have them in the constructor after the super, because init is happening after the constructor. How are we using it inside any mod? Just to remind myself, and this is exactly one of the reasons that you will always prefer to have extensions like this. When I'm opening the screen, this is the handler and that's it. This will become ugly really fast if I want to assign them inside constructor. Yeah, because this constructor is actually being called not from block entities, but from this client that is calling the registry for mod screen renderers, and this is how you're doing it. So it's actually the gem cleaner screen handler as the first param, the handler. Actually, no, wait a minute. Where are we calling this? Oh, the block. And I'm not gonna clean things from the video footage. I want you to see this process of trying to remember things and handle things. Not on this guy, the G block, because this is an extension of G block. Let's go into the G library, Jiralib, wherever it is. Let's open our block. Here we go. And it happens on use, I think. So yes, we have a problem here. The problem is that we are not calling this screen renderer constructor directly anywhere. So if we are not calling it directly, actually we should be calling it inside the block entity. Let me see, because somehow we have to set that title and call it. Let's take a better look at here. So we call the handler, and oh, this is where we are setting the title. Okay, so get display name. I assume that the handler is directly, yeah, here we go. Let me see, this is the inventory. That's the player inventory, super.title. Where are you actually being used? And I will not be able to find usages, yes, because I don't have a source. Can I assign a source? No, I'm not going to generate sources. Anyway, I'm fairly sure that we are not directly calling this constructor, so we can't do anything inside the constructor. All we have to do is actually inside init. If you track these constructors, especially the super one, let's middle mouse click on that. I didn't generate the sources, so I can't find usages right now. But the thing is that we are not directly calling this constructor from our mods, not in the screen renderer registry, not in the block entity, not in the block. We always call the handler. And the handler is handling this constructor by itself. And I assume it should be somewhere inside the code. Let's see if I can find it. And as you see, we are not even directly instantiating the handle screen here. If you don't know, we are not directly calling this constructor ourselves. Nowhere, not in client registry, not in block entity, not in block. The reason is that on server side, we are calling the handler. Now the handler can't directly instantiate a screen because the screen is on client side. So the handler will send a packet, the client side will take the packet, and the client will instantiate that screen for you. In other words, we don't have direct access to this constructor. If we want to do anything, we have to do it in init. Now the problem is that we need to have a way of getting our hand on the width and height of the background. So we need to say get background width, and here we will say get background height. This is the only way, because as I said, we can't have a builder because the client side will not use the builder, and without a builder, we can't inject anything inside the constructor in this way. Our only method is just adding these inside our class. So just hover it, create integers, and that's it. I will make these protected and I will make them abstract. Knowing that I just need to call the draw background, I'm totally okay with doing this. So protected, abstract, integer. And doing this means that now I can convert the class to being abstract. Again, these shouldn't be final. I prefer to have methods for them, because this way we will force the programmer to override these. However, instead of making them abstract, this time around I will give them some value. So should draw container name will return true. Should be centered for the container name will return true. This one will return false. And of course, this one will return false. Now I will take this draw background and I will move it on top. Inside the draw background, all I will do is say that please screen utils dot draw background for me, and here I will have the x and y. Are we assigning x and y here? I assume we are not. So we are just drawing it here, this dot x. Oh, we are setting it. So yeah, why not? So this dot x, this dot y, and then we already established the background width and height. This dot background width and this dot background height. What's the context? We want the context. And this will draw the background for us. So we don't care about this anymore. Also, we want to draw the player. So you say if handler dot should wait. Okay, here's the problem. My handler is screen handler. So let's use abstract screen handler. Now we need another generic here. So T and U, let's call it B, is B, and we need to make sure that B extends block entity. We now can say that, what was that? Use player inventory, and use player inventory is returning the true or false here. So if we use the player inventory, we go with the screen utils.draw texture for the context with the handler.getPlayerInventory X, handler.getPlayerInventory Y. That's the X and Y, and we need a texture here. For the texture, we go with container-based textures.playerInventory.id. After that, we need the U and V. So this is the, let me copy this one, .u. This is the v.v, then this is the width.width, and this is the height.height. This is the texture size, so .texture width, and finally .texture height. Now I will put each one of them in one line so that we can read it better, because now I will add things to the X and Y. So for X, we will add to it the offset from the X, although we don't have it, but it's a nice thing to have, .y. Now the thing is that the texture for player inventory has no offset. However, I want to have it there so that if at any time I made the decision that my texture will be different, then that's okay, we have it there. So this is again drawing the player inventory for us. Basically, we added the background, we added the player inventory if we need to, we centralized the drawing container and inventory names. What else do we have that we always do? Let's see. The rest is foreground and stuff like that, and the render. So we want to have nothing there. And this is our abstracted screen renderer. Now, provided we made it a little bit complex using two generics, but who cares? Okay, let's build it so that I can show it inside the test environment, because that's really critical. Let's create the Maven local. Now here's the question. Having two generics is changing how vanilla is handle the screen. It's using one generic. Will it work? So far, I did change this guy to use my own abstract, and this is how you will use it. You will send a block entity type and then the screen handler type. As you see, I removed the draw background. Let's close that one. We are not drawing the background. We are not drawing the render. We are just drawing things on the foreground, and then we are assigning it to be 100 by 100. It's not the proper size, I know. All I want to see is that registering it the way we had before is not calling any error, but will it show inside the game? I need to go into my first GUI. Fingers crossed. Yay, we have it. Although the size is not correct, but guess what? We are using that generic value here, so I can get the width and height from here. So draw background, it's 174. Let's fix that one. So the width is 174. The height is 220. And if I hot swap it now, it should be centered properly without anything else. And there we go. Although I'm not sure why it's doing it on this screen. It's not centering it at all. I need to get that code from here. I'm not sure why it's doing it, but it's doing it. So after setting the width and height, I will reset the X and Y again. Yeah, it was doing it. Okay, I need to close and reopen the screen. So I don't need to do that. I don't need to do this. Okay, because I did change the values. Oh, I know what's going on. Okay, I closed the interface and opened it, and it's centered out. The reason is that I'm using hot swap. And using hot swap means that these values will not be read again until the init will be called. And init will be called only when you right click on the block to open the GUI. So as you see, it's centered and the texture is okay, the size is okay, everything is okay. Let me show you the process again. I will open this guy and I will go into the second one. I can't do the hot swap here. Okay, I need to extend it from abstract screen renderer from my class. And before this screen handler generic, I need to call the GUI BE2 as my block entity, and it will force me to implement two methods for the background height and width. And the background height and width is actually the same thing. So I will just copy this. I have to run the game anyway, so paste it there. Guess what? We don't need draw background anymore. And in render, we have things. So I will cut it and move it up. Inside this guy, we are not gonna draw the background here anymore like that. Instead, we will call this super. We want the super dot draw background, and it will draw the background for us. Now, I was drawing it all of that inside the background. Let's cut these. These are not backgrounds. These are containers or anything. So I will cut it from background. I will draw foreground and I will add them to the foreground. So right now I'm just drawing fluid container textures, and that's it for fluid container textures, because the rest is happening in init, and inside init I don't need any of that, none of that. Okay, but right now, I don't want to show the container name. I don't want to show the inventory name. So I will say container name, hit Control O, and let's see that it's not from here. It's not from here. Only has the draw background. Did I make them private? Yeah, it shouldn't be private. God damn it. They should be protected. That is why I didn't see them inside my GUI. However, now I need to rebuild the library so that it shows up. But if I need to, I can just override them. So I will copy them. I will paste them. Right now, they are not override annotated. However, the container name should be false to draw. I just need to change this guy, because if I'm not drawing it, then guess what? I'm not centering it. The inventory is already false. So if I run the game now, I'm not drawing anything in the background. I'm not doing anything in the init. All I'm doing is drawing my own widgets and transactions, some fluid into the tank, and that's it. So where is that hang? Oh, it's here. Okay, now let's go back to the game and take a look at the second GUI. And guess what? Everything is working other than these things. Now, the reason for them not showing up properly, let's see what is the problem here. Inside the init, I'm setting everything. I think the problem is here. Oh, you know what? I moved the code from draw background to the foreground. Yeah, that's it. I need to remove this part, this one, because now the offset is context aware, is aware where the background is, and it will start from top left corner of the background. And the widget is not correct now because we are drawing it on the foreground. God damn it, that was why I draw them on the background. Okay, now I remember. Okay, draw background. Yeah, I remember now. We are drawing the backgrounds for the GUIs. Okay, let's get them. Was that all? I think that's all. Yeah, so let's get them, cut them, and we are not drawing anything in the foreground. So after the super call, I will call that, and hopefully hot swap will work. No, it will not. Rerun the game. I was derping for a second there. We are drawing the widget backgrounds there. Now, if I want to, if I really want to, in the widgets, I can do the same trick, because if you look at the container backgrounds that we are using for the colors, it's inside widget, and I wish that we could see, it's the fluid one, isn't it? This is the marker. This is the background. Yeah, we are using this background. And again, if I zoom in, you can see it's a 1 pixel draw from here to here, 1 pixel draw from here to here. Again, the same deal. You know, I can draw a fluid background by the code whenever I want. However, I'm not doing it. The reason is that when you are drawing something like a gradient, you may want a different background for whatever reason, with different size and different border colors. I'm not aware of that. Of course, I could add a widget for that. It's totally doable that will draw the fluid background. Or I can accept few different colors and fill with you using those colors and draw the background using those colors. So you can tweak the colors there. However, what if you want something like, actually, I'm not drawing it. I don't have it inside there. Let me give you an example. Where is that one? Here. What if you want a border like this? It's a totally different texture. It has pixelations, and it's not easily doable by just drawing some borders. Because of that, I can't let you have a fluid widget that draws its background automatically, or any other gradient or solid color. As a matter of fact, you need to design those few things inside Photoshop. However, as you see, it's actually really simple. You need, I think, 3 colors. One is the panel, one is the shadow, one is the highlight, and I already provided those colors for you. So if you want to see the values, either use your paint application, or you can go into GUI colors, and inside the background, you see that this is the panel, this is the highlight, and this is the shadow. And these are RGB values that you can use inside Photoshop, for example. And I could use binary one like 0xFFFFBB, something like that. But I intentionally used the integer values so you can copy these values inside your application if you need to. Or alternatively, open any texture from Minecraft and you have the panel and shadow and highlight values, so you can draw and design your backgrounds for the GUI. Anyhow, it is working and I'm happy. And finally, we have our abstract screen renderer. One more thing that I can add here is the tooltip. So let's see. I have this tooltip, isn't it? Somewhere. Oh no, the tooltip is happening inside widget. I'm derping. So that's it. We have our abstract screen renderer. I'm really happy with what I have because I don't have to draw the texture anymore. I don't have the player inventory handling anymore. All I need to is just flipping some true or falses if I need to, and then set the background width and height. The default values is how I like to have my inventories. I don't like to have that inventory name in my GUI. I already know that these slots are player inventory, but I do like to have the container name and I do like to have it centered. So that's it. If you like these videos, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button and turn on that bell so that when I publish a new video, you will get informed. Have fun everyone. Bye.